This is a long job. Now, it's debatable as to whether or not it's faster to do this by saw or by hand plane, but I'm going with saw. Part of the reason is that I'll be left with a long flat piece which, if I ever decide I want to duplicate this base, I can basically use as a template. Now I've got my blank here, and what I've done is I've screwed in some pieces so that it's firmly secured to the bench. And all I do is I take a plane. In this case I'm starting with the jack plane, and I plane it down to the line so that it's the correct thickness. Right, and using our number 5 to flatten it out and our number 4 to smooth it off, we've got basically a nice smooth flat surface. So if we check it with our ruler, that's good. So now all we need to do is put in our truss rod cavity and for the splines, and of course the headstock will also need some further thinning. But that can be put aside now, and let's do some other work. Now it's time to look at the pickups. And what I've done is I've started to make the bobbins. And the bobbins are plastic. I cut this out of an old CD container. And then the core of the bobbins is actually well, it's ceramic magnets. And a little known thing about ceramic magnets is if you hit them just right, you can fracture them and get a section. So when I join that together, I get a nice long magnet which is going to form the core of my bobbin, and that sits inside this plastic section here. And then that'll get glued in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue that in with some gel super glue. Make sure we're at 90 degrees. We let that dry. Now while that's drying, I'll explain. There's a top part and a bottom part to the bobbin. The bottom part is longer, the top part is shorter. The bar magnet goes between them, and what happens then is that you wind on the wire. The top part will rest up against the underside of the pickup cover. The bottom part will have holes drilled into it, so the whole thing will become an assembly that holds the pickup in place with screws, and there'll be a hole out here for the wires. You'll see it as I progress. Okay, so here are the bobbins, and you can see that they have a little bit of bamboo at the end of the magnets. That's to avoid the sharp edge when you wind the wire on. And they're actually charged so that the magnets repel each other. So this side and this side is the direction of the magnetic flow. It's reverse polarity. They'll also be reverse wound. Now I'm going to make the end pieces. These are going to be maple, and they're going to be a block of wood that sits here on the end of the pickup, like that and that. They're going to be 20 by 12 by 12, and they're going to be these kind of rectangular things. And what will happen is that the pickups will actually screw into them. There'll be pieces down the side here of another type of wood, which will actually be the walls of the pickup cover, and there'll be a piece of wood on the top. There'll be a nickel plate that goes underneath as well. So what I've got is a piece of scrap maple which came off the neck, and I've put it in a mitre box, and I've got a nice little dovetail saw, and I'm going to start cutting up my pieces. Here are the maple blocks, and that's roughly where they're going to sit. Now for the sides of the pickup, I'm going to do 8 strips of this thin maple. I'll cut them out. They're 12 by 130, and they'll get glued onto the blocks. There'll be 2 on each side to provide a little bit of rigidity. So you can see these strips will be glued together like that, and then onto the end of those blocks to make a wall. And now we'll make one of these to use as our template. What I'll do, I'll spread on my glue, and then we put the pieces each side, and we measure against the actual pickup bobbin to see where it should be. That looks about right. Check it against both, see that it fits inside. It does. And then we simply clamp. Remember this little cut off from the fretboard from earlier? Of course you don't. Well, what I've done is I've marked the top of the pickup cover on it. And I'm going to cut this out, then I'm going to cut it in half, and that's going to give me my 2 tops to this. Then once this is plain flat and those are glued on, I'm going to have, well, my pickup covers done. Okay, so this is what we wind up with, a nice fingerboard wood top. It's about, what, 2.5, 3 mil thick. We've got maple on the sides, and then the bobbin itself fits precisely inside. It'll have screws holding it in here, there'll be a space for a wire to come out, and all of that is going to be done in the next few steps. Every amateur builder in the world does this. What they do is they lay out what they've got so far and have a look at it and say, look at that, I'm making an instrument. So that's where the base is up to right now.